Hello and welcome to Sound Off Sports SOS. Mike Davis here with my main man, producer James Edward Barrickman the fourth. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You as well.
With your family. You were traveling. How's Nashville?
Nashville was great. Nashville's a good time. When you have a sister that lives there, you don't really get to do the
touristy,
the Broadway stuff,
yeah.
Right? And I've done my fair share of tours on Broadway, so it was fun though. Good times with the family. Catching up with people that I met down there.
That's a good thing. A lot of good football going on during the holiday, but we want to focus on the Buffalo Bills. We all have imprinted in our memory. I mean, listen. There's something about snowstorm football games that just make you giddy. It takes you back to being a kid, right? When you watch.
There's nothing better than that.
It's pretty majestic, I would say, at the least, to just witness that. And listen, this guy Josh Allen coming off a proposal to an actress and a singer. He parlays that into one of the best plays I've ever seen in an NFL game, where he's credited with not only a passing touchdown, but also a receiving touchdown.
That's nonsense that he gets credited
You
for
think?
both of those. Yeah, no, that is a passing completion. So he should get credit for that, but then he should only get credit for a rushing touchdown. He should not get credit for a passing touchdown.
It's crazy how it works, but if you didn't see the play, basically Josh Allen in the red zone tosses the ball to Amari Cooper, a heads-up veteran play by him. He's kind of about to get tackled, fumbling the ball a little bit. He dishes it out to Josh Allen, who has a heads-up play, and tracks the ball, and boom, he over the pylon. He's in the end zone, and it's
if Josh Allen gets credit for a passing touchdown, does Amari Cooper get credit for a passing touchdown?
No, it's a receiving.
Well, then why does Josh Allen get credit for the passing touchdown?
It's a passing and a rushing, I guess, which is weird. But it's kind of like...
That's dumb. It should only be a rushing touchdown for Josh Allen. And some of the fantasy managers, I benefited from it.
You did?
Yeah. I benefited from it in a big-time matchup I had for the 1 seed, actually. Josh Allen got, I don't know how many points. I think it was like 10 points or something
from that
like
one
that.
Play. It's crazy, but
should not have been scored that way.
I'm not one of these people who gets worked up about that as much. I'm more basking in the excitement of that play. But it all ended in the Bills basically routing the 49ers 35-10. Listen, this is not a San Francisco 49ers team that we're accustomed to over the past couple of years, dealing with a ton of injuries. Of course, Ayuk's out. Christian McCaffrey looks like he might be out for the season now. So a lot of injuries they're dealing with this. This is not the same San Francisco 49ers team. But the question we asked to all of you at home was, hey, are the Buffalo Bills the best team in the NFL? James, let's get our first response.
This is from Agz Hines on Facebook. He says, yes, we are. I've been a fan since 1985.
Okay, so he's a big Buffalo Bills fan. They have a great fan base. Listen, there's not a lot of teams that are going to go into that weather and compete with the Buffalo Bills like that. I mean,
that's a tough ask.
Yeah,
that is a tough ask. Like when you have a guy like Josh Allen, I think that game really just shows you the difference between a guy like Josh Allen and a guy like Josh Purdy, where Josh Allen's kind of like the snowmobile in all of this, and Brock Purdy's more of like a Honda Civic. You know what I mean?
Listen, even last year's 49ers aren't beating the Bills in that weather.
It's hard when you're not accustomed to playing in that. And what's great about the Bills and their whole culture, not just the team, but the fan base as well, is they embrace it. They lean into it. And this is like, hey, this is what we play in. Good luck. And the Niners had a really tough time. I mean, Brock Purdy had 94 passing yards?
Yeah.
That was brutal.
He looked pretty pedestrian. And listen, I mean, yes, this is a fan base that they got paid $20 an hour to snow.
That's crazy.
To take some snow removal situations from the stand and get some food and drink. So listen, great fan base. I think after this whole weekend of football, after Thanksgiving, you tend to reflect a lot about the top tier teams in the league. To me, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking from the NFC, it's all about the Lions and the Eagles. And the AFC, I think it's really all about the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Steelers.
You put Pittsburgh up there?
Because I would
too.
Because the
would
way
too.
that Pittsburgh's playing with that, listen, you parlay that defense with that offense, if they're cooking and scoring points, like we're not accustomed to the Steelers playing offensively like this in a very long time.
It's been a while.
So if that's going to happen, that's to me the 5 teams that are really in
That's your
this
Super Bowl bubble?
Super Bowl bubble.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it. Now, are the Bills the best team? I think they have the MVP. I think Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. I like how the
You don't
Bills.
think Saquon's the MVP?
I think it's 1 and 2. You know, if Saquon beats Dickerson's record all time,
We'll have that conversation.
I think he's MVP. But I mean, Josh Allen is incredible. You know, and this is a team that's finally embracing the identity of Buffalo. I think for a lot of years, you know, it was a little bit more shaky because it was just pass first. Josh Allen's throwing the ball all over the field, and we'll see what happens. Really, now it's more about running the ball. It's about controlling the
James
line of
Cook
scrimmage.
brought an
It's,
element.
you know, like, so if they're playing that way where they're controlling the pace of the game and Josh Allen, like, you know, we know the past few years it's been, you know, who gets the ball last between Mahomes and Josh Allen. Now
It's not
like,
so much that way.
now they're kind of pacing the game in a lot. You know, you watch them as opposed to the Chiefs almost losing to the Raiders on Black Friday. I mean, you can't even think that they're playing at the same level.
If the Raiders went into Buffalo,
They get
smoked by 2-3 scores, right? Like that whole I'm at a loss for words. You can hear it. I have no words to explain what we saw from Kansas City against the Raiders on
and I think there's a lot of things. KC in a playoff environment when they play against a team with a tremendous, I mean, we saw what Max Crosby was the wreckage he was causing, but their tackle situation is really weak.
Right.
The Chiefs. I mean, there's a lot of missing components to that team. I'm curious when other teams like the Lions, they can beat you so many ways. They can beat you running the ball. They can beat you throwing the ball. They got a great D. You know, like
the Lions are getting a little banged up defensively too, though.
they are.
Yeah.
The Eagles are an interesting case because their defense is trending up. They can beat you running the ball. They can beat you throwing the ball. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, the Steelers and the Eagles look like maybe the two best. Our teams might look like
when you're just
contenders.
talking about like complete rosters.
Yeah.
I think you have to look at the Eagles and the Steelers. What the Eagles and the Steelers lack, though, is that top flight quarterback play, the Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
But while they do have, you know, better rosters, I think, than the Chiefs and the Bills, what puts the Chiefs and the Bills over those teams is Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
100%. And once we all know when it becomes playoff football time, having that elite quarterback could be the difference maker in, you know, winning those games. And that's why we've seen even Mahomes, he's looked a lot better over the past few weeks, and he's doing what it takes to win. So
I think they're still trying to figure out what to do kind of with Worthy and without Rashee Rice, and you bring DeAndre Hopkins into the mix, and they're still trying to figure out their identity offensively. You got Pacheco coming back.
Right.
So I don't think that Chiefs offense is even close to a finished product.
Yeah. So I would say my personal answer, the Bills are the best team in the AFC. Are they the best team in the NFL? It's any given Sunday kind of situation, but I think you gotta feel confident in what Josh Allen's bringing to the table and how this team is finally functioning as a unit. Because I think for a lot of the past few years, it's like, Sean McDermott's a good coach. They got some decent players, but it's really Josh Allen putting the team on his back.
Right.
Now it's like he's putting the team on his back, but this is a roster.
Right.
You know?
I think if you asked me, you know, to put a stamp on who I think is the best team, I would have to go with the Lions still. I would probably put the Lions at 1, Bills at 2, Chiefs 3, Steelers 4, Eagles 5.
Wow, you got Eagles at 5.
Reason being is because, you know, I still don't trust Nick Sirianni.
Right.
And I think deep down, you don't either. And a lot of people in Philly don't either.
I mean,
although,
all those,
what have they won? 9-10 games in a row now? They looked like an absolute wagon.
Since he cut his hair, and they've gone on a tear. But it is, listen, no team is perfect. And I think as you start getting deeper into the playoffs, you start thinking the Reed Mahomes connection, who's going to break that? Is there, is that you have two Titans there, they're going to probably figure out ways to win. I think Sean McDermott's a really smart coach as well. Tomlin, elite level coach.
Of course.
Campbell's an elite level coach. So, Sirianni.
And we haven't even talked about the Ravens and the Packers and the Vikings, these kind of other teams that are going to be a force.
I think they're at a whole different level. I really think.
The Packers even?
I really do. I mean, because I just don't think their rosters are at the same level. I really don't.
I think when you're just talking rosters of these teams in the
but it's like you need multiple
picture.
Ways to win. Like that's why I'm saying the Vikings, they're pulling out wins, but I mean they're almost losing to crappy teams.
It's
right?
It's not necessarily pretty how they're
winning. So it's I don't think they're dominant. I don't see the dominance so much. And it's like, okay, Darnold's good, but we're not taking Darnold over Josh Allen.
No, of course not.
There's not enough going on there.
But I think what makes the Vikings interesting is that you have a real play caller in Kevin O'Connell,
right?
Who can kind of elevate a guy like Sam Darnold, who maybe otherwise is just a middle of the road kind of player. And we've talked about this on past shows. How bad are the Niners missing Sam Darnold right about now?
No, they are. I mean, I think a lot of people would say, would you rather have Darnold than Purdy? I would say
absolutely.
So.
And I would have got ripped for that a year ago.
A year ago, right. Yeah, and I think 100%. But to me, it's just there's so many factors. The Vikings, they rely. If Aaron Jones is playing well and running the ball well, they look a lot better. But Aaron Jones is not Saquon. He's not James Cook. So it's like...
all right. Aaron Jones is a lot closer to James Cook than James Cook is to Saquon.
But Aaron Jones, it's not like a guarantee that this dude is cooking. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like in the playoffs.
Is it a guarantee that James Cook is cooking?
I actually think their run game is real. I think it's tough with Josh Allen because you got to worry about Josh Allen and his wheels, and it's a little different.
If we're talking about the run game as a whole, I'm talking
Cook's
about
a lot
players.
Younger, dude. Yeah. You saw him; he burned out for like a 60-yard. In the snow. Whereas Aaron Jones he's on the tail end of his career. He's good.
No question. If we're talking about the run game as a whole, I can agree.
So I think there's
I was talking the singular players.
There's things like that. To me, it's like you just need so many different ways to win once you get into the playoffs. And it's like we were talking about this in the back office. Dude, if Russell Wilson is back to playing the way that he looks.
400 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. Granted, Cincinnati's defense is horrible.
They're awful. But still, if he's going to be doing that, then this is a whole nother thing to even talk about. The
Steelers, if Russell Wilson is anywhere close to what he was in Seattle, they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender and can play with anybody in the AFC, and that includes the Bills.
We talk about this all the time. He was playing his way out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He was playing his way out of Canton. Now he's reinvigorated this, Steel City.
He's reinvigorated the offense. He's reinvigorated his career. The Steelers team, they feel a little bit different because you remember that 2020 year where they started out like 11-0. It was Ben's second to last season where, they started out 11-0, but we all knew that this was a house that would come down with the pull of one feather. So this one feels a little bit differently than Steelers teams of past. And when I say past, I mean the past 5 or 6 years where it's been, we're going to scratch across 14 to 17 points. We're going to win this football game. Defense is going to have to score for us to win ball games, but it doesn't feel that way right now. It feels like we have a legitimate play caller, a guy who has designed a legitimate offense in Arthur Smith, a quarterback who can play it at a high level, and playmakers in Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, George Pickens, who are as good as anybody at their positions, I'll say.
I always look for the juice at these times of just the temperature around these programs. To me, the way that Tomlin embraced Russell Wilson heading into the locker room after that game really interesting to witness. The way that Sean McDermott and Josh Allen are doing snow angels after that victory. I mean, there's certain teams that are just, they are gelling at a different level. You know, even the Lions, they're just all the teams on a trajectory that just have a lot of a special sauce brewing. You know, last year it was everything the Eagles weren't doing. You know, they were on this awful losing streak. You know, the
way the Eagles ended that
the
season,
mood,
Jesus.
all that stuff was bad. So now it's like all these 5 teams we're talking about, maybe even not the Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs are maybe the team that, in terms of,
you can just never count them out.
You can't count them out.
I mean,
these
Andy
4
Reid,
other
Mahomes.
teams,
they're the Patriots of the new age,
right? But these 4 other teams have something special brewing that's beyond the play on the field. There's something going on in these locker rooms where they're believers that they can win this thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that means a lot. I don't know if, you know, Minnesota's there yet. I don't know if Green Bay is there yet. There's a difference.
Those are a couple teams that are like a year away, but I'm talking, you look at a team like the Ravens. You know, I mean, the Ravens,
you can't count them out.
Up until, you know, the last 2 or 3 weeks, we were talking about them as one of the contenders in the AFC.
But you get worried with them because look what the Eagles did. I mean, he doesn't have as many people to throw to as you think. You know, Lamar. That's a big thing. You can't just rely on Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews isn't what he used to be. So it's, you know, and Derek didn't really do too much. I mean, we contained him to a
running backs are only as good as their O-line. So I will say that. So
I just think it's interesting. And all these teams, I mean, the Eagles played without Devontae Smith.
Yeah, so, which is impressive. And this is one of the things we were talking about before the show started. I had a really, and I still do have a really hard time unseeing the way the Eagles ended last year. What, a 5 or 6 game losing streak, and just looked totally incompetent and poorly coached. And honestly, at the beginning of this season, I wasn't sure how much longer we'd be talking about Nick Sirianni as the head coach of the Eagles. But you look at them now in this roster. It's Vic Fangio,
the
Vic DC.
Fangio is the DC. He's really him and Saquon.
That defense and just the whole roster. They look like an absolute wagon. And I didn't think there was a team in the NFC really coming into this season that was going to be able to compete. Other than the Niners, I'll say, because I was not expecting this out of the Niners. I was not expecting anybody else other than the Niners to be able to compete with the Lions.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are like, whoa, wait a second, we're still here.
Yeah.
And we got a damn good roster that's very well coached and a quarterback that's playing at a really, really high level.
Here's the bottom line with them. You know, the last thing I'll say with them is, obviously Saquon is having a career year, MVP quality season. He's taken so much pressure off of Jalen Hurts just from a mental standpoint.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts was always playing superhero ball, you know, for the past few years, which is fine. I mean, when you're performing like he did in the Super Bowl when they lost, he looked tremendous. But he took a big step back. He was a turnover machine last year, and he was just playing superhero ball the entire game. Now, bringing Saquon into the mix, this team has a totally different, approach. It's like he is regulating the offense, Saquon. He's the guy who's actually creating the pace of the offense. He sets up the first downs. He gets us in those 3rd and short. You know, he can bust the game out and wide open. So he's the guy just actually creating more of the quarterback comfort, where Jalen just then has to inject himself and be a point guard after Saquon situates the game. So
what I think is really interesting about the Eagles is how they kind of wear on you.
Yeah.
They have a great O-line, and obviously Saquon's an MVP candidate, but they don't score a whole lot in the first quarter or on the first drive. They do a lot of their scoring in the second half on that, but you can see it after they've worn you down all first half, and then Saquon, 100%. Next thing you know, he gets to the second level untouched, and you let that guy get to the second level untouched, he's gone.
It's a good point, and those runs that he broke off against the Rams, you know, I mean, that was all second half stuff, you know. So I think that's showing big maturity in terms of the growth of Sirianni as a coach and Kellen Moore, the OC, because it's committing to the run game. That's we always hear about, you have to commit to the run game. You have to play a quarter or so where you're, you know, maybe you're running a 2 downs. You got to punt a couple times because you're not, you know, get in the wear and tear of the defensive line. But yeah, you got to commit to the run game, and then look, that opens up the whole field. So
Of course.
you start doing that, and we're not even playing fully healthy with Smith and Brown. And like, there's just so many weapons on this team.
No question.
It
That
makes
roster,
it kind of scary.
the roster's terrifying.
I
don't know if I trust Nick Sirianni. He's going to have to prove it to me.
So if you had to pick today, you had to select your Super Bowl, who is it?
I'm taking Detroit out of the NFC. And I would take Buffalo.
Okay.
I would have a Buffalo Detroit Super Bowl.
I'm in accordance with you. I think I'm a big believer that you have to be knocking on the door for a season or so before you get that entryway. I think the Lions did that last year, and I think Buffalo
they should have played in the Super Bowl last year. Right. They blew that game. Dan Campbell blew that game.
I think that you learn from those mistakes and you grow. And I think right now, gun to my head, I'm putting Buffalo and Detroit down.
I have a hard time looking at the Chiefs at 11-1, sitting at the top of the AFC.
But the eye test is different, dude.
But if you
don't
the
block
Bills
a kick,
have to go,
they should have.
The eye test is telling you that. Eye test is telling you that the Chiefs are not the same Chiefs.
Yeah.
But at this time last year, we were saying the same thing. And what happened? They got hot, went on a run, won the Super Bowl again. I will never be willing, as long as the Chiefs have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, to count them out of the AFC. Although, head-to-head right now, I would give the Bills the edge. But if you told me the Chiefs, if I looked in my crystal ball, someone told me that the Chiefs knocked off the Bills in the AFC title game, I'd be like, yeah, that plays. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It's just hard. Like, that's why you start thinking about this AFC. That playoff, that conference is just going to be difficult in the playoffs because all these teams that are just like even wild card teams,
just rugged.
It's playing the Chargers is going to be rough.
Great defense, maybe the best defense in the league.
Playing the Broncos is going to be tough. These are teams that in the AFC West alone, getting the Ravens are not good. These are teams that
think about it. Teams like the Chargers and the Ravens, they're going to have to go on the road.
Right.
To play, like in these AFC matchups,
the worst
that
team
you're
might be the Texans, and that's not that bad of a team. They don't look like they did last year, but still
they've taken a step back. But it's still the Texans.
Where the Saints could make their way, or the Falcons could make their way in the NFC.
I don't want to talk about.
But I'm just saying, in the AFC, it's tough.
It is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a fist fight, a street fight. In the AFC, and those wild card matchups in the first round,
right? So
they're going to be super entertaining and physical.
So whoever gets that first seed bye, it looks like the Chiefs would get that first seed bye. So at
this moment, it would be the Chiefs would get the one,
right? Yeah. So if they're getting the one, so then it's like, do the Bills get beat up a little bit on that? There's a lot of components to this. If they gotta get punched in the mouth and play, the Chargers or something, that's going to take a lot out of a football team.
Yeah, to get stuck in that wild card round and have to play a team like the Broncos, like the Ravens, whoever, like the Chargers, and then the Chiefs are sitting at home watching
and
you.
And then who knows?
It would be prime
really
setup for another disappointment.
It would be so Kansas City like if somehow Hollywood Brown comes back for the Super.
Right.
It would be something.
That's something like that.
Something like that.
Well, then who are you saying, real quick before we go to break here? Who are you saying is your top team in the NFL right now? Is it Buffalo for you?
I'm still gonna say Detroit.
Detroit's your answer?
I'm gonna say Detroit because I think I like the dominance that I've seen from them.
They're just motivated.
Like I just
that they are going to be. They remember what that felt like in the NFC title game, and they have great talent. They still feel like they are the underdog.
And it wasn't. Listen, Thanksgiving is a tough game. They probably should have beat up on the Bears a little bit more. Yeah. But this
is the NFL. You're not going to smoke everybody.
But they have been smoking teams, and they just play tough, and I don't know. I really am a big believer that running the ball is critical.
Of course.
But a lot of people are moving away from that, and I think this year we're seeing the resurgence of what
the run game.
Run game.
Yeah, everybody's talking about it.
Look,
The passing league.
look what Josh Jacobs has done for the Packers.
That's somebody that nobody's talking about.
What they
He's
really
having a
should.
Great year.
And to me, I think half of the reason why the Packers look so good is really Josh Jacobs.
Right.
Because he's regulating the team. And it's like,
and when you have a young quarterback, you need to
helpful.
have somebody you can lean on. And it's not just young quarterbacks.
Right.
Again, like,
but you see
this plays that plays for every
100%.
quarterback of any age.
Goff is, a lot better of a quarterback than we give him credit for. He's got a lot of weapons. You put Jamison Williams and the burning speed that he's got. Yeah. Listen, Jamison Williams, like the Chiefs are hoping Xavier Worthy can develop into a Jamison Williams because Jamison can do those short routes. Like Xavier Worthy, it's like it really doesn't even make sense for him to be on the field unless he's
running a reverse,
a hot route or a reverse.
Sweep.
So it's like you think with the Lions, it's like, man, you got Laporta, you got Amon-Ra, you got Jamison, you got all these guys, and then you got the best offensive line in football. Yeah. And then you got Sonic and Knuckles. And you got Montgomery and Gibbs who are Gibbs looks ridiculous.
The Lions, it's the Lions Super Bowl to lose.
So I think the Hutchinson thing is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
There's a chance he could play in the Super Bowl.
If it comes to that, yeah.
His rehab has gone well. I already saw that he's like making a lot of progress and stuff. So they got Zadarius Smith. They picked him up. So I don't know. I'm still going with them. I think they got the juice this year.
All right, Lions Bills Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
I like it.
As we head the break, James, let's hear one more response we got from the good people at home.
This one is from William S. Pender on Facebook. He says, no, the Lions are.
All right, welcome back to SOS. I want to introduce you to two guys who are going to be critical to the Desert Dogs and their success this season. Yes, the National Lacrosse League gearing up for a brand new year. The Desert Dogs have moved from Michelob Ultra Arena at Mandalay Bay. They're now playing at Lee's Family Forum in Henderson. Let me introduce you to Connor Kirst and Jack Hannah. In nature, the Desert Dog possesses many of the attributes that Las Vegas lacrosse embodies. Scrappy, cunning, friendly, but fierce. Alone, the Desert Dog is powerful, but unstoppable as a pack. And for a roster that carries a pack of 34, the Las Vegas Desert Dogs are lucky to have the tandem of Jack Hannah and Connor Kirst.
He is one of the best competitors that I've ever been around. He wants to win in everything he does, and when you see that and you share the floor with him, and he has that passion and fire, it raises your intensity. It brings out the best in you.
Like Hannah, competing and winning is top of mind for the Desert Dogs as they enter their third season of play and first in a brand new arena at Lee's Family Forum in Henderson.
It's not that we didn't feel at home in Mandalay Bay, but let's be honest, it's pretty hectic around there. I think, around here it's just a little bit quieter. It's still a very fun area and there's a lot of things to do, but I think it'll definitely have more of that local feel. It'll make it easier for the season ticket holders to, be at every game and see the same faces, and they have a chance to get an autograph. They want to talk to you, they want to hang out, and they're really makes it feel special and makes it feel like home. And I think it would continue to kind of grow the environment that we've built here. And I think this place is an awesome step in the right direction.
A greater step in the community also means more of a spotlight. And for a team still seeking their first playoff berth, creating a solid culture is top priority, and it doesn't happen overnight. Jack Hannah understands this as he won a Premier Lacrosse League championship in his rookie season with the Philadelphia Water Dogs Lacrosse Club.
That team was just we were a really close group of guys. I think it started in the locker room, which is something that I think we're continuing to grow here, and I think that's where it really starts. Having a strong culture, having a great group of guys that really enjoys and wants to play for one another, and then, as well as also putting it together on the field and executing and kind of connecting those dots.
And culture trickles down. So although Connor and Jack see themselves as leaders, it's evident that general manager and coach Sean Williams is the gasoline that's fueling the engine of the team.
Coach Williams is the best. I've had the fortune of playing for a lot of great coaches, but there's not a single one like him. He empowers you when you're out on the floor and gives you that confidence to let it rip. And he's someone I really look up to just as a man. When you look up to someone like that and they're your coach, I would do anything for him.
Scrappy, cunning, friendly but fierce, all traits of the Desert Dog. But this team, this pack, led by Coach Williams, they want to play like this.
Gritty. We kind of live on the 12-round fighters. Each little battle that we go through, running hard and on and off the floor, is something that when he was a player, he prided himself on. And it's not easy to do, but that's something that we have to mentally just buckle down and do. It's very tough. It's moving fast. It's not really taking crap from anybody. It's doing anything in your power to win that game and not stopping until the clock's at 0.
Well, it's a great time of the year when it comes to football. Yes, we got all the stuff out about the NFL and the Buffalo Bills earlier in the show, but now college football season is upon us with this great college football playoff. It's the first time, James, that we're dealing with a 12-team college football playoff.
It's going to be awesome.
It's very exciting. It's really, I think, spawned a lot of newfound interest in the sport because
100%.
Before the 14 playoff, you're really just fixated on who's the national champion.
Right.
Whereas now there's this sentiment that it's kind of like March Madness, just getting a bid into the tournament, getting into this 12-team playoff.
Does so much for the programs.
Yeah, and it's just an excitement just for that, beyond even moving past that.
And everybody feels like they have a shot from start
to finish.
Yes.
Right?
Like, because at the beginning of the season, you're one of these teams like in Indiana or, in our case, a Northwestern or a West Virginia. We're not making it to the 14 playoff. That's crazy talk. But you expand this thing to 12 teams.
Right.
You have the top 5 conference champs get automatic bids. Now we're talking
100%. And
all 134 FBS.
And I think if there's one note to tell everybody at home, I think the good thing that the NIL has created, I think there's 2 things that have made college football really substantially more interesting over the past year. It's the 12-team college football playoff, because it brings that March Madness element or feel to college football and the postseason. Whereas, listen, we all were hoping Colorado was going to get into this college football playoff just to be able to see Shedeur and to see Travis Hunter play a little bit more ball before they go. But last year, if they were in this position and we didn't have the 12-team playoff, they'd be, Travis Hunter would just sit out the blah, blah, blah bowl,
we're not even talking about.
So now it's exciting to have this, but I think that's one big element that has really reinvigorated this college football landscape in the game. But also, the NIL stuff has helped in the sense that the depth that most of these teams used to have is not there anymore, because that's how we're seeing in Indiana or some of these other teams compete. Because if you had a backup center that was a stud at LSU, now that guy's if he's not gonna start, he's gonna go make money and play at a lesser, maybe not at LSU, but he should be playing D1 and get paid.
TCU or
right.
whatever.
So it kind of makes it gives it a little bit more parity to the landscape. But the big thing that we want to talk about regarding us and our show is this Mountain West championship game. Of course, Boise State, UNLV, both in the Mountain West Championship. There's a very high likelihood whoever wins this game is going to get a bid or berth, one of those 5 automatic bids into the college football playoff.
And to your point, just about the 12-team playoff bringing a whole new element to this thing, we are not talking about UNLV, Boise State the way we are talking about it if it's not for the 12-team playoff. Because if this thing is still 4 teams, neither Boise State nor UNLV
they're not getting
has a shot to get in. But we know, looking at these rankings now, the winner of this game is going to get to the 12-team playoff. UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the Rebels. We're talking about them making an FBS football playoff. That's bananas, unheard of. But here we are.
Now, we all remember when, speaking of Kellen Moore,
oh, that was a great team.
Boise State, Fiesta Bowl.
Yep.
I mean, that was a big showing out for Boise State. A lot of people became familiar with that university in general just because of that game.
Because of that year's run.
But let's talk about particularly this game. So obviously Boise State beat up on UNLV at Allegiant Stadium earlier this year. Well, they beat them.
They beat them. Yeah.
I mean, it was a rough
The
going
way you said
29 to 24.
Yeah.
It was a little bit back and forth there,
Yeah.
for a lot of the game, but then Genty in the fourth, put them over the top. So fascinating stuff there. 29-24. Listen, Boise State, they only have one loss all year long, and it came early in the season to the number one team in college football, Oregon.
By what, 3 or 7
It was
to Oregon?
37-34.
Yeah,
So
it was a 3-point loss to the
3-point loss
in
in week 2. Boise State hasn't lost since. UNLV, obviously, the narrative of the whole season, they were 3-0. Matthew Saluka, starting quarterback, holds out, ends up leaving the program. Haj Malik Williams, quarterback, comes in.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
On the whole Matthew Sluka thing, Matthew Sluka did UNLV a favor. Because I don't know
want this to turn into the whole Matthew Saluka
But when
show.
we can skip past this, but they got better the day that Matthew Sluka left. And I'm not saying because they cut a cancer out of the locker room. I'm not saying Matthew Sluka wasn't a good teammate. I'm saying that he's not as good of a quarterback
as Haj
Malik Williams.
He brings another dimension to the team.
Haj Malik Williams can actually throw on time and in rhythm, timing patterns, and he's a much better athlete. We see what he could do with his legs as well. I don't know what the coaching staff was looking at with Sluka that whole time, but I am glad that Haj Malik Williams is the starting quarterback of the Rebels right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the Rebels, they look good. Since the loss to Boise State, have played pretty well. They had a 38-14 win over Nevada that helped them with the tiebreaker over Colorado State for this Mountain West championship game. So right now, UNLV, they're ranked 22 in the nation, 10-2. Obviously, Boise State 11-1, ranked number 11 in the nation. Now, last year's title game, Boise State defeated UNLV in a more telling way, 44-20. So it's a little different this go around.
It's a totally different team. UNLV was kind of a year ahead of schedule last year.
100%. Before we talk about this game and repercussions for the playoff and who you think is going to win, who do you think from the nation standpoint? Because these are two interesting storylines. I'm curious who you think the nation's rooting for, because there's two major components here. UNLV football, not a program really recognized, not a school recognized for being relevant in football pretty much ever.
Yeah.
So this is a major excitement storyline just from the basis of Barry Odom, the way he's transformed this program. For them to get college football playoff berth would be, locally would be the biggest story in sports for the year.
Easily. Yeah.
But on the other side of the coin, Boise State's got this guy who's almost the face of college football in Ashton Genty, and people love this kid. He's easy to love, and I think a lot of people would want to see Genty running all around in the college football playoff.
You're absolutely right. If you're asking me who the nation is rooting for, obviously us here in Vegas, we all want to see UNLV get in. But that's because we've been with this team from day one. We've been watching them all season long. But nationally, UNLV has not been getting a whole lot of media attention outside of the Sluka thing.
Once they lost to Boise State, it changed.
I think it was really the Syracuse loss.
Even more so.
Yeah, because that was kind of the first one, and then you lose to Boise for your second loss. And at that point, a lot of people were thinking, season's over, pack it up, go home, as far as playoff implications go. Wasn't the case. Here we are. Point being, nationally outside of the Sluka thing, UNLV hasn't gotten a lot of attention.
Right.
Boise State is, as you mentioned, a program that a lot of people know about. They kind of came onto the scene during that Fiesta Bowl. They had that Statue of Liberty play against Oklahoma on the hook and ladder to get them in that position. And that was kind of what made the nation fall in love with Boise State. You have that kind of group of five brand, and then you toss in the nation's leading rusher, a guy chasing Barry Sanders' record, one of the Heisman favorites. I mean, if you're one of these people outside of Nevada, you want to see Boise State. If I wasn't living in Vegas, I'd want to see Boise State just for that kind of star power that they possess.
Yeah, so it's going to be fascinating. Who do you think really is going to come out on top from this game?
Oh, yeah, I'm rooting for the Rebs, obviously.
Do you think – let me ask the question a little bit more in a nuanced fashion. The loss earlier in the year, 29-24 at Allegiant Stadium, does that help or hurt the Rebels having that in their mind? Is it hurtful that they kind of know, like, damn, this team already bested us, and they got to get over the hump and mental jump of beating them after that? Or do you think, hey, it's cash money, like
I think that's more
house money. We already lost to this team. Now we just got to go play. We saw a little bit of what they can do. Let's just go out and play our football and let's readjust.
I think what I have learned about this team going to all the home games and covering them on the Reb Zone is they're not scared of anybody. And they are a team that when the chips are down, they're not just going to pack it up and go home. That's when they punch back. You back them into a corner, that's when they're at their best. So with that being said, they have already lost to Boise once in a game in which I thought UNLV outplayed Boise State. And if it wasn't for an end of the half kind of blunder that ended up being a 10-point swing in Boise State's favor, right, I think UNLV comes out on top. So with that all being said, UNLV is a resilient group. They know that they've already lost to Boise. They're not intimidated by Boise. They're not going to go in there scared by the Smurf turf and that opposing crowd. I don't think that plays a factor at all. What I think is really interesting, and I know we're not supposed to talk about betting on this show, is that the spread on that first game, UNLV was a 4-point underdog at home. Now they're on the road at Boise State, and they're still a 4-point underdog.
Wow.
So usually when they go on the road, that swings the spread in the home team's favor. So I think that's telling about what Vegas thinks about UNLV as well.
Interesting. All right. Well, there's a lot of build up and excitement for this Mountain West Championship game. James, let's hear what somebody at home has to say regarding this college football potential play-in game.
Go Rebels! Beat Boise! Yes, you can do it.
Yes, so we asked everybody at home, can UNLV actually defeat Boise State in this Mountain West Championship game? So you're a believer. I'm a believer. In me asking you that question earlier, I was like, yes. To me, I actually think if I'm Boise State, I'm more scared because, we've done it once. There's now an expectation that we should do it.
They've got that tape on them. And listen, Boise State's offense is Ashton Jeanty. And no team has contained Ashton Jeanty this season better than UNLV has. I think they held him. It was 3.8 yards per carry.
Yeah.
He still had over 100 yards. I think he had about 130 some yards rushing, but it was on 35 touches. So he was averaging less than 4 yards a carry. Even Oregon couldn't stop Ashton Jeanty. So I think when you're looking at that and you're Boise State, you got to look at maybe some other playmakers because, UNLV knows that they can stop Ashton Jeanty. But on the other hand, UNLV's like, hey, there were a couple times he had a chance at some big runs. We're going to have to do that thing again.
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing about the college football playoff, even after this potential game, would be I think there's going to be a lot more of a March Madness element to it. And what I mean by that is I think teams that are from lesser programs, smaller programs, I think they're going to ride the wave of momentum like we see in March Madness, a 16 seed makes it to the Sweet 16, and all of a sudden they're like building on that momentum and that special magic that they're riding the wave on. I think we're going to find that. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, there's no way a Boise State's going to take down, a University of Miami or one of these bigger top tier programs. I don't find that to be the case. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that some of these schools that have only one loss and they play as a team and they're complete football teams, they could take down some of these top tier programs. And I think we're going to see that.
Yes, no question about that. And what you were talking about earlier as far as like NIL goes and these guys who, used to stay and sit for a couple years at these, blue blood programs, they might not be willing to do that anymore if they can get paid and play somewhere else. So with that being said, you're going to have a little bit more parity. Probably
100%
along the college football landscape. But what I think is interesting about the playoff itself is that if you are a team like UNLV or you are a team like Boise State or Tulane or Liberty or one of these G5 teams that we were talking about making a run at the playoff from day one, the money that just getting there can bring into the program. Once you get there and you play that game, it doesn't matter. You just got to get in because the money's already there.
But that's why you're playing for bro. I mean, that's going to help these teams, I think.
Right. And now we're talking about like the Mountain West Championship game in UNLV versus Boise State. You know, Steve Cofield talked about this on our show earlier. Boise State's had a target on their back all year long. UNLV, they knew this is where they wanted to be, but nationally, people didn't recognize that.
Yeah.
So UNLV's kind of playing with house money, and the pressure is on Boise State because everybody's kind of has expected them to be the team to get there in the first place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, the star power of Genty and what that all means. Question for you. Do you like Maddox Madsen, the quarterback at Boise State, more than Haj Malik? Who wins the quarterback showdown?
I think Madsen is a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback for the G5 level. But I think Haj Malik Williams is dynamic. What I mean by that is, we know a lot about him as a runner, but he's also great just as a pure passer as well. So I'm giving the edge to Haj Malik Williams. Granted, I've watched a lot more Haj Malik Williams this season than I have.
Right. So he's shutting down Genty. Obviously that's what everybody tries to do.
Shut down Genty, you win the football game.
You shut him down, Madsen's not beating you.
No.
He can't just take over the game.
No, and you look at Boise State's like offensive box scores throughout the season, it's Ashton Genty gets 32, 33 carries a game. Oh yeah, now he's going to have 4 or 5 catches too. That's 35 plus touches a game. And you look at some of these receivers, you'll see 5 or 6 guys on there, 1 catch, 2 catches, 2 catches, 1 catch. These other guys haven't had a chance to really get the football because it's been the Ashton Genty show all season long. Right. So you stop Ashton Genty and you make Boise State beat you in other ways, I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that.
And the way Odom coaches this team, they're a physical team. They're more physical than an Oregon. So right. UNLV is going to be able to potentially stop them, and they did look good against Genty when it comes to that.
What I'm concerned about is as far as UNLV goes. One, obviously, your top concern is Ashton Genty. Last game when they played at Allegiant Stadium, Boise State and UNLV, I'm fairly certain UNLV took a season high in sacks. I want to say it was somewhere around 6 sacks.
Okay.
Boise State's defensive front really put the pressure on Haj Malik Williams. So it'll be interesting to see how the UNLV offensive line balances back and handles that Boise State front.
Okay, that's a good note. All right, James, as we had the break, let's hear our last response on can UNLV defeat Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game.
This is from John Ross on Facebook. He says, unfortunately, UNLV doesn't know how to beat them, so it will be resulting in a loss.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's now time for Sink or Swim. I'm going to give James the pleasure of talking about one of his favorite topics of all time to talk about with football. It's about Tua and the cold.
Yes.
Tua and the cold.
Tua's struggles in the cold are obviously well documented at this point.
You love this fact. I mean, it's not like peanut butter and jelly, Tua and the cold.
There are a few things that are guarantees in life. We all talk about death, taxes, Tua losing when it's below 40 degrees, James Franklin, the head coach, losing when he plays Ohio State, Sean McVay losing when he plays Kyle Shanahan.
I guess you could say
Mike
Ryan
Tomlin
Day,
on Monday Night Football.
Ryan
There's a few
Day
guarantees.
Losing to Michigan, you could say that.
Right.
But
there's a few guarantees in life. But
as I'm watching on Thanksgiving, I'm watching the Dolphins play Thursday night against the Packers. Cold situation in Lambeau. I'm watching the game, and just like it's a given you're going to have turkey and stuffing on Thanksgiving, it's a given that James Edward Barrickman IV is going to send me a note when Tua's playing below 40 degrees, because you just knew it. You bet on this game, I would assume.
Yes, I did. And I won't say which way I bet, but I didn't bet on Tua.
So
Tua Tagovailoa
okay, let's hear it.
is now 0-8 as an NFL quarterback when the temperature is 45 degrees or lower. He's 0-4 when the temperature is 40 degrees or lower. He's 36-15 when the high temperature exceeds 45 degrees. So, point being, if it's over 45 degrees,
He plays pretty well.
he plays okay. But if it's under 45 degrees, the man doesn't stand a chance. And there's a stat that I don't have handy here, I just don't have time to pull it up, that when the weather's below 70 degrees, Tua's not very good in the cold.
So, what could it be? I mean,
I have no idea.
we know
I
this
have
guy's
no
from Hawaii.
He grew up in warm weather.
So we get that. He
He's
plays
not
in
used to
Miami.
cold. He played at Alabama. It doesn't get too cold in Alabama. Not during the college football season, at least. Miami, we all know about Miami.
So
I don't know. I have no idea.
we're actually if he was playing in that Buffalo game instead of the 49ers.
He would have done exactly what Brock Purdy did. Brock Purdy looked like Tua in the cold. You saw the ball slipping out of his hands. That was embarrassing.
You start thinking there are elements to, hand size, things do come into play in a snowstorm like that. But just at a Lambeau game when there's no elements, it wasn't really.
No,
it
it's
was a
just
little rain.
really
it was
cold. There was a little snow.
A little, accumulation of something, but it's not. So I don't know. It's just fascinating that he has such a kryptonite to this cold weather.
I'm not sure it's all Tua because, again, this is a team that plays in Miami, trains in South Florida, is in the warm weather year-round, right? Versus a Green Bay team or, and we talked about Buffalo earlier, going up north against teams where playing in the cold, they lean into that. Well, this is our identity. This is our house. Good luck.
Miami's not a physical football team.
No.
They're flash and dash, their speed. But to me, that beyond all that, because we know that, I'm just puzzled how Tyreek and Waddle and the offense doesn't have the same burst and, flash that it had a year ago. What could have changed over a year? Obviously we know.
I think a lot of it is Tua's health. He hasn't been in there. They had to go to Huntley and go to other quarterbacks.
Well, they lost games because of that, but the play calling, Tyreek Hill has he got a fumbled catch that could have been an interception as his touchdown that game. Pretty much until the fourth quarter, he had nothing going on. This is a guy, it's even the routes that they're running with him and the way he's being targeted is puzzling.
I think what this really boils down to is that it might not just be Tua that's bad in the cold. It might just be warm weather teams are bad in the cold. We saw how bad San Fran got popped. San Fran's not the San Fran we're used to seeing, but a Kyle Shanahan coached football team isn't going into a 55-degree day in Buffalo and getting smacked like that, right? So I think a lot of this has to do with more warm weather teams just don't play well in the cold, and specifically Tua, because when you watch Tua in these games, last year in the playoffs against Kansas City, this past Thanksgiving against Green Bay, he doesn't even look like the same guy. There are times he doesn't look like he belongs on an NFL field when it gets that cold. And I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if he's in his own head because people talk about it so much. But Tua is just not even close to the same player in weather below 45 degrees than he is when it's 70 degrees and sunny.
And that's why I get all that. I'm just saying, why is Jonnu Smith now the best tight? This dude is getting every target. I
always liked Jonnu Smith,
but it's just check downs now. Yeah. It's kind of like Jonnu Smith is having 12 catches and 120 yards because it's check down football. I don't get where's all the stuff that was on NFL Red Zone. last year, where every time, Chris,
You're seeing deep
he has to
dimes,
keep
crossers.
He's got to keep switching back to the Miami game because there goes Tyreek Hill again. There goes Jalen Waddle. It's like every second, Achane, Hill, Waddle. Everybody was scoring at rapid paces. It was we can't even catch up with the highlights. Oh, there goes Tyreek Hill again for another 75 yards. Now it's okay.
You're saying the play calling changes when the weather gets that cold,
I don't know.
Well, maybe the play
year.
calling changes because the personnel doesn't perform at the same level that it does.
Wouldn't you just do...
Again, I'm not a football coach,
I'm
but
just
I don't know. Do his hands get cold?
But I'm just saying, to me, it's just scheming plays up. It's just it's kind of I don't want to make this a Madden show, but I'm just saying you have Hill speed and Waddle speed. Don't you just cross them over the middle and then you just...
But I'm saying you got to look at Tua because, again, this isn't Madden. And in Tua's performance, we see it on TV. His performance changes in the cold weather, right?
I get that.
But I'm saying, because his performance changes in the cold weather, therefore the play calling has to change as well. Am I right?
No, of course, but I'm saying this is beyond just that cold game. This is the whole year. It just doesn't seem
I think the offense plays fine. I think the offense plays fine when it's in Miami. Yeah, I do. But again, Tua hasn't been there all season long. They haven't been able to really get in rhythm.
Maybe they're all dinged up. Maybe Hill's more dinged up than we thought.
And maybe it's
because it's the wrist thing with him. Maybe there is something to that. I don't know.
And the chemistry might not be there again, Tua was out how many games?
But listen, beyond the cold, you had Hill's arrest.
Yeah.
You had Tua's...
It's not been a great season.
Tua's injury. I mean, a lot of stuff going on there. Do we still believe in, off-white Mike McDaniel?
I still believe in Mike McDaniel, but I'll say this. I said it on maybe a past show. I think the Dolphins would have been better off tanking the season away.
Which
I know we tanked for Tua in the past.
Yeah.
I think what they should have done was sit Tua down, say, hey, your life is more important than this football season, your NFL career, and of course Tua made that choice. But I think the Dolphins as an organization would be better off if they would have just started Tyler Huntley or whoever else they had playing quarterback for them, and they were in the running for one of these top picks to get one of these quarterbacks coming out of the draft. That's where I think that
still could happen. They could keep losing a bunch of different games, but it's been certainly an interesting season to say the least. But we definitely got to say, anytime Tua's playing in the cold, you're the inside. You're that's your beat.
If it's 45 and below, take the other team.
If Tua's walking into a Walgreens and it's 42 degrees,
right.
you're there.
Yeah,
you wouldn't
100%.
know. You're not even sure if he's going to be able to make it in and out of the store.
Correct. Yeah.
You're that worried.
He's not going to be able to pick up his cotton swab. I don't know. What do you get at Walgreens?
Deodorant.
Your deodorant, yeah.
Something like that.
Whatever.
Listen, great show. A lot of great football stuff happening in the universe. Make sure you tune in to everything we got going on at Silver State Sports and Entertainment on YouTube. Make sure you check us out on YouTube TV as well. We got a bunch of different shows covering everything from UNLV football, Raiders, Vegas Golden Knights, all that good stuff. For myself and James Edward Barrickman, the fourth, we'll see you next time here in the den at Fox 5 Studios. Until next time, have a great rest of the week, guys. We'll see you next time.